Very good. Thank you, Tom. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the regular Board of Ed meeting, Monday, June 11th. Thank you all for coming out, especially the students. I know you have a lot of homework, even though it's like a week left of school, but still. Thank you for coming out. Very quickly, I just have to take care of some housekeeping, and then we're going to get right to it. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the school district of the Chathams has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the Chatham Borough and the Chatham Township, the Library of Chatham's, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, the Star Ledger, and the TAP, which is an online newspaper. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind taking attendance?
Sure. Mr. Gilfillan?
Here.
Mr. Harder?
Here.
Ms. Chambers?
Here.
Ms. Chigarelli?
Here.
Ms. Clark?
Here.
Ms. Kenny?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Valenti and Ms. Weber?
Here. We're both here.
9 present.
Yeah.
If you're able, could you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And getting right to it, I'm going to forego any president's comments for now, since we have a full house, and pass it right over to the superintendent. Dr. LaSousa, would you mind?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I hope everyone's doing well. It's a very busy time of the year. I know several of you had senior students who attended the prom on Friday night. We've had a lot of award ceremonies in our schools, concerts, so it's been very busy. We have 3 presentations tonight from other folks that we've invited to join us. And the first group of folks are the academic team. And as you all know from the note I wrote to you last week, we had history made in Chatham in that for the first time ever in the history of the school district, our academic team advanced past the regional championships and all the way to the, I guess what you would call the Meet of Champions or Tournament of Champions, which will take place in Florida this coming weekend. So I have asked the 2 advisors of the club, Ms. Lynn and Mr. Cummins, to come up to the microphone and say a couple of words about the experience that these guys have had, how they've done and how they've competed, and hopefully 1 or 2 of them will be brave enough to say a few words as well. So if you can come right up, Mr. Cummins and Ms. Lynn.
Hello. Thank you for having us. I'm Mallory Lynn, if you don't know me. We just want to say thank you to the board and to the district for allowing this opportunity for our team. This was a competition that you had to qualify to get into, and in order to qualify, you had to win first place in a statewide certified tournament. So it had to be registered through the NAQT or some other Jeopardy format, and all the other teams we competed with had also come in first place. So that alone, just to make it into this competition, was a phenomenal achievement, and for them to go even further with that and come in first place, we could not be prouder. They were absolutely exceptional. So thank you, guys.
Well, I just want to thank you as well for the opportunity to, acknowledge the team. There's little to add. I mean, they were amazing. They did really well. And as Mallory mentioned, of course, they won the tournament. And I'll let some of the students address, the experience for themselves. But the one thing I'd like to add and definitely emphasize, beyond, the applause for winning it all, they really represented the school in an exemplary way. There's a photo of the entire team. We took 3 teams to the tournament, and of course the A team won the tournament. Equally impressive to me is the B team made it all the way to the semifinals. If they had won their last match, which was a close match, they're all close matches, it would have been an all-Chatham final, which is probably unprecedented in the history of the tournament for any school. But as Mallory is saying, I mean, the teams they're competing against aren't, arbitrary teams from arbitrary locations. They've had to have earned the right to have reached this tournament, and so everybody is really good. And I mean, I think all the schools, deserve a shout out. I mean, we hear so much in today's world about education and lament how high school students, know so little and they're not learning anything. You sit in any of these tournaments, you're just impressed over and over and over again just how much all of these students know, and the breadth of it and the depth of it, and the questions bounce. The questions are completely arbitrary in terms of subject, so it goes from art to history to literature to music to science to math. It just bounces back and forth, and so you need breadth, depth of knowledge and wide knowledge, and the teams, the team was very, very impressive. Okay. And as I was saying, I mean, from my point of view, the thing I was most pleased to see was just the way they conducted themselves. You can see from the picture, I mean, there's no requirement on what one wears, and there's some other teams that choose to dress up as well, but our team chooses to dress up for every tournament. So as you can see, they're all in jacket and ties. The ladies are wearing a dress or a skirt outfit, and they're doing it for a reason. They're trying to put their best foot forward, and they succeed. Okay, not only academically, but the way they just represent the school. Their sportsmanship is incredible. Their camaraderie is really incredible. They're there to help each other. They never hear a bad word. So that's the thing I'd like to emphasize the most. And I'd ask the team to just stand up so that everyone could see who you are, okay? We don't have to name them by names, but I think everybody should see them. I can't, you want me to? Okay, well, Dr. Lucius has asked me to name these people. I know their first names very well. If I mispronounce the past name, I'll apologize. But Stephen Ratner, okay, Sophie Andrews, who was on the championship team, Najan Narek, okay, Panasonia, correct? That's close. Okay. Catherine Wang. Okay. Aria Sinat. Sorry. Okay. Pretty good. Okay. Dennis. How do you pronounce your last name, Dennis? Get it? Okay. Okay. Eric Torno. James Hadley. Okay. Armin Panasonian. Okay. Also on the A team. Okay. And Amaya Fendus. Sorry. Okay, who's also on the tape. There's one person that's missing, who's Alex Contangolo. He's going to his college orientation. Did I skip Sophie? No, I got Sophie. Zoe. I didn't see Sophie. Zoe over there. It's over there. Okay. So Amaya is the captain of the A team, and he's also the president of the academic team. So I think he wanted to say a word or two, so I think it's best I turn the mic over. Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm not usually one for public speaking, but this time it's...
We aren't either, so go ahead.
This time it's kind of personal.
Don't let that stop you.
And I'm sorry if my voice is a bit hoarse. I'm coming off of a cold. So I kind of just want to say thanks to some very deserving people. To start, I'd like to thank all of you guys for funding our trips to the tournaments. Over the 4 years I've been on academic team, we've been to many competitions and have had a lot of incredible success. So without your support, we wouldn't be in the fortunate position that we're in now. I'd like to thank the families of each member on the academic team, especially my own, for the love and support that they give us through our wins and through our losses. They've helped us grow to be the bright and brilliant young minds we are today, and I can't express into words the amount of gratitude that I feel. Of course, we wouldn't be where we are without the support of our advisors, Mr. Cummins and Mrs. Lynn. I'd like to thank you guys for pushing us to be the best we can be at all times. Thank you for your commitment to the team and to each person on the team, and thank you for helping make us who we are today. So, like I said, I've been on the academic team for the past 4 years of high school. When I first joined, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I barely knew anyone. The atmosphere felt kind of foreign. That changed immediately. Every member made me feel loved and at home. Even today, we're a tightly knit group who care deeply about each other's well-being. We are a team who, no matter what happens, have each other's backs. We're a family. So my final thank you goes out to each and every member of the academic team, those who are here today and those who could not be here, past and present. The countless amount of trophies and awards we've won wouldn't mean anything to me if I didn't have my team standing next to me to share them with. It's been an honor to watch you, each and every one of them, grow as members, people, and friends. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Is everybody a junior or senior, or is it, there's some of you are freshmen, sophomores? Freshmen? Sophomore? And the rest juniors, seniors? Sophie, what was your least favorite question or most favorite question? Or does anybody have one that... Is there such a thing as a winning question? Like
Points, right? It is the
No.
winning question, right?
You don't remember? That's fair. I thought you had one in your head that was, particularly... Well, thank you all. This was fantastic. When do you head off to Orlando?
This weekend, Friday.
Oh, Friday. Okay.
Tournament takes place over the weekend.
Oh, very nice. I know you'll continue to represent Chatham as you have already in the past.
Do you need us to chaperone?
Yeah, really. If you need 9 chaperones, we happen to be free. Well, congratulations and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great job, guys. And you can leave. You don't have to stick
It won't
around.
be rude if you all get up and go. It really won't. People do it all the time. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Go on Space Mountain after the competition.
Keep thinking of that, Justin.
All right, and next up, as you know, right at this time of the year, we always ask the junior class advisors to present their application, if you will, to the Board of Education for open campus for the following school year. So Mr. Groh is here. He's joined by a couple of the stellar officers from the junior class of 2019. And you guys can come up to the microphone, Mr. Groh.
Sure. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak here. So good evening, Board of Education members. My name is Sean Lee. I'm next year's Senior Class Vice President, and this is...
I am Grace Whiteman, and I will be our Senior Class Treasurer.
And we are here today on behalf of the class of 2019 to ask you for the honor and the privilege of open campus. And so we believe open campus not only to be a vital and important part of the high school experience in general as seniors, but also in our development as young men and women. Ever since we were little kids to young teens to going on to future college students, we are granted more and more responsibility and more opportunities to demonstrate our responsibility, our honor, our loyalty, our leadership, and our character. And this is definitely an opportunity to do so as well. And I think that if the last 3 years have been a testament to how our class will respond to this added responsibility, then you can be fully trusting that our class will use this responsibility wisely and not abuse the privilege. And so I'd like to highlight a few of those achievements in the classroom, in the community, on the playing fields, and even in the theater room. So most importantly, the community. Not only does our student body consist of 5 senior class cadets at the Chatham Emergency Squad who provide weekly emergency medical services to Chatham residents, not only do we have multiple firefighter cadets who help families in their most devastated states, but we also have many Eagle Scouts, we have Gold Award recipients, and actually more than a third of our class is in the National Honor Society of 2018. And this is a program for which you require a minimum of 25 hours of community service. So this is 25 hours at a minimum that each of these students, more than a third of our class, is putting to the Chatham community and dedicating their time and efforts towards that. And so I think that is very impressive, and I think that's just a testament to our character, to our heart to serve the community. Moving on to the classroom. So I have some numbers here. Last quarter, 120 of our students made the honor roll, and an additional 71 of our scholars made the high honor roll. So that is nearly 2/3 of our students that are not only putting their best effort in the classroom, but excelling. And this is the reason that time and time again, Chatham is on top of the academic leaderboards, because of the initiative, because of the dedication, and because of the hard work of students like those in the junior class. The next area I'd like to talk about is the playing fields, and I can definitely speak for this. I'm a member of the Chatham varsity baseball team, but I think I speak for all of the junior class students when I say that we all take a pride, an utmost pride, in representing Chatham and representing each other, the name on our backs, the name on the front, Chatham High School, in competition against other high schools. And many of our juniors have played integral roles in multiple sports state championship runs. But more impressive than this, I think, is the initiative that some of our students have taken to create new sports at Chatham and to offer new opportunities to students who might not fit the current sports that are there. So some of our juniors have taken the initiative and the opportunity to create new teams, such as the Chatham-Madison girls ice hockey team and the Chatham paddle team. And I think that is equally awesome as earning a state championship and putting another banner on our school gym. And the last area I'd like to talk about is not one that I'm particularly good at, but it's the arts. And so I think that the expertise of the class of 2019 in the arts not only is a testament to the creativity, to the ingenuity of some of our students, but also it gives our students a more worldly view and a more culturally diverse view as well. And so I think that all of these reasons combined are reasons that you can trust us with the honor of Open Campus, that we will not let you down, that we will represent Chatham High School, the Board of Education, the township, the borough, with pride and with character and with leadership. And I think that all of these reasons contribute to why you can trust us next year with the honor of Open Campus. So thank you for letting me speak here, and have a nice summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Grace, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll add something. So I think on behalf of our class, the class of 2019 as a whole, well, Sean touched on a lot of it, but whether it be in the classroom, on the sport fields, in the theater, in the art room, we've all learned many vital lessons to help us mature as both students and people outside of school. And I believe we will be able to use these lessons, these valuable life lessons we have learned over the years, and take them with us to this privilege of open campus. And I believe this honor will also allow us to mature for the future we have ahead of ourselves as we become more independent women and men. So thank you for giving us this time to speak. And
Okay, well, stick around. Mr. Groh, how say you?
I don't have too much to add here. I think they said it all. I'd really answer any questions that anybody has up here. I would tell you that I fully support the class of 2019. Beyond all the accomplishments that they just spoke of, I would tell you that on a larger scale and a daily scale, they've been a great class. They've been responsible, they've been respectful, they've been courteous, and they've really been great ambassadors for the school as a whole. So I fully support Open Campus being approved for them as we move forward, and as we talk about every year, any situations that occur or arise, we would deal with as they occur. But I think as a group, they've been fantastic, and I think it would be a great next step to prepare them for life outside of Chatham High School.
Very good. And Sean and Grace, I mean, your records stand for themselves, and we have no doubt that your academic prowess is fantastic. A lot of times what I'd like to say, though, is, just remember to keep an eye on each other. The previous gentleman that just spoke said, they care deeply about each other. They care about each other's well-being. So if you see something, say something. If you see a kid struggling, say something. If you see a kid flying down Longwood, pull them aside and say, hey, don't fly down Longwood or we're all going to get in trouble. So, just keep an eye on each other. There's 300 of you, and, you can all just kind of keep a close tabs on each other, and, don't leave a man down. And if you see something, bring it up to their attention, bring it up to Mr. Groh's attention, the counselors. So, just keep up the good work. And this freedom comes with some responsibility as well. So as you see your classmates, maybe struggling, you can all step up and remind each other to keep an eye on each other.
Yes, ma'am. We will take that to heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you very much. You also don't have to stay through the meeting. It is not considered rude.
All right, and then the cleanup hitters are coming now. They are Anthony Giaconia and Lori Gironda, who will present the annual discipline report. And just as a point of reference, we're required on an annual basis to review the disciplinary incidents and record of the district. As you might imagine, K through 5, we don't have a huge number of incidents, so we focus on the middle school and the high school.
Good evening, Dr. LaSousa, board members, and members of the community. I am Anthony Giaconia. I'm one of the assistant principals at Chatham Middle School. This is Mrs. Gironda. She is one of the assistant principals at Chatham High School. And tonight we'd like to highlight some of the current trends in discipline at CMS and CHS. So to start off with, at CMS, we've seen an overall drop in the number of incidents and suspensions. However, at the same time, we've had an increase in the number of students who have committed 3+ incidents. So what that basically tells us is we have a small number of students committing multiple offenses at the middle school. We've also seen an increase in the number of Hiv investigations this year, but on a good note, we've seen a decrease in the percentage of confirmed Hivs. I'm now going to turn it over to Mrs. Gironda, who will take care of the CHS data.
Thank you. So just to point out some of the things that we've been facing this year at the high school and some of the things that we've been focusing on, we have continued to use protocols that we had put in place over the past couple of years, such as checking bags and using the PBASD, the passive breath alcohol sensing device, at events, including Cougar Weekend this year. That was something new that we had done in order to really address any issues about students coming to school events under the influence. And that seemed to have been very successful this year. We actually had 0 students who were identified at events as being under the influence. One of the other aspects that we've been focusing on is vaping. Vaping is not just an issue at Chatham High School, it's an issue across the country. I know we've all read a lot about it, seen a lot of news about it, but it is something that we are focusing on at the high school, and we're really trying to address this behavior through, there was a policy update that was put in place last summer, I believe, the pupil smoking policy. We have instituted additional bathroom checks, more frequent bathroom checks of both the girls' rooms and the boys' rooms, and we've also been providing students with additional information regarding the substantial health risks that are associated with this behavior, because a lot of times students are thinking that there are no risks, and we know that is not the case. Another aspect of the vaping behavior, though, that has been of concern is students using other substances in the electronic devices, the electronic cigarettes, such as THC oil. So it's not just nicotine that can go in these devices, but other substances as well, and we want to make sure that we're really in front of that. These next couple of slides are simply some infractions that are part of our code of conduct, as well as the typical discipline that may be assigned for them. Our discipline ranges from warnings through teacher detentions, central detentions, Saturday schools, out-of-school suspensions, and that's pretty much as far as we would go unless an expulsion was required, but I can't remember when that ever happened. So one thing that I wanted to point out here, though, on this particular slide deals with vaping and smoking, and I put a star next to those so that just to highlight those. As I mentioned, last summer we updated the pupil smoking policy, and we included more information in there about vaping. And we included something in there about a second offense of vaping. So if a student was found to either have vaped more than once or even just been in possession of a vaping device more than once, the substance use policy actually would come into play, and a student would be subject to all of the protocols in that policy, including mandatory drug screening, and if it were positive, all of the things that would come from a positive test. So we have had to institute that policy this year, and we have found it to be effective, I think, in being a deterrent and just a good way of getting additional information out to students that vaping is not a good idea. taking a look at the total number of incidents that we've had this year, as of June 1, when the data was collected, 253 total incidents against our enrollment of 1,278 students comes out to about 0.197 incidents per student. We had 166 students who had one or more incidents this year, which is about 13% of our student body. And of those 166, 9 had 5 or more incidents. Students who commit 5 or more disciplinary incidents, it's usually things such as a cell phone violation or sometimes disruptive student. And we address those, we have policies to address those. Of those 9 students who had 5 or more incidents, 8 of them were between 5 and 10. And again, it's usually cell phones and things like disruptive student. Only 1 of those had more than 10 incidents. And just so you're aware, a student who commits more than 10 incidents, there's usually other interventions that we are putting in place with support staff in the school. Our out-of-school suspensions, we had 13 students who were issued an out-of-school suspension this year. Only 1 of those was a repeat offender in terms of being issued a second out-of-school suspension. So it was about 1% of our student body was issued an out-of-school suspension, and less than 1% repeated. This shows a breakdown of the percentage of incidents by grade and gender, and the trend is somewhat similar to what we saw last year. Taking a look at this year, 79% of the disciplinary incidents were committed by male students, 21% by females. Taking a look at the grade breakdown, we had 30% of our freshmen this year, about 14.5% of grade 10, just about 40% for grade 11, but don't hold it against them, even though they just gave their presentation. And
Sean didn't mention that statistic.
yeah. And about 16% for grade 12. One thing that I do want to mention about grade 9, we did have a large class this year, a large grade 9 class. And, often when our 9th graders come in, they really take a look at the upperclassmen and they model off them and they see how they behave as high school students. And from my perspective, that took a little bit longer this year, so there were more incidents in the beginning of the year involving freshmen. But, they really are a great class too. And so I don't think we should hold that against them either.
Maybe Sean's still in the parking lot.
Okay, so the incidents that I was talking about previously, that number 253, was our discipline type incidents, and those are the ones that are more significant violations of the code of conduct. The ones on this slide are file type infractions, which are they're less significant violations of the code of conduct. There are things such as being late to school repeatedly, or late to class, or not signing in, or not following procedure. We had 513 of these incidents on record as of June 1, 271 students involved in those incidents. So really this is an issue at Chatham High School. We do have a lot of tardiness to school, not so much tardiness to class unless it's the first block of the day, and that is because the students are arriving late to school. So it's something that we are really continuing to address. I put, on this slide a couple of the ways in which we do that. We do post letters to the Genesis Parent Portal to identify when students reach certain benchmark totals for lates and absences. We do assign detentions for students who are repeatedly late. We assign provisional credit for both tardiness and excessive absences, as well as loss of credit for tardiness and excessive absences. When we have students who reach those benchmarks, such as provisional credit or loss of credit, there are conferences with the student and an administrator or a counselor, and if it gets to the point of loss of credit, we are also meeting with the parent either in person or speaking on the phone to try to identify ways in which we can assist if there is something that's preventing the student from getting to school on time. And then the last slide I'm going to talk about in this particular segment is about academic integrity, something that repeatedly comes up, something that we need to continue to discuss. We had this year 32 cheating incidents as of June 1, involving 27 students, which is 2.5% of our student body. And of those 27, four of those students had more than one cheating incident. And really, in a case like that, we do need to take kind of a multi-pronged approach in terms of working with the student, counseling the student, working with the teachers to continually remind students of what constitutes academic dishonesty. So we really continue to work on that. We continue to discuss amongst ourselves as administration and staff how we can better work with students to address this. One thing that I do want to mention is that with cell phones, so many cell phones and other forms of technology, it does make it a little bit easier for students to share things that maybe they shouldn't be sharing. So we really need to work toward continuing to give them parameters as to what is acceptable sharing and what is not acceptable.
Excuse me, so you're finding that it's not necessarily in class?
Yes.
It's all kind of offline, in terms of...
Yeah, it varies. Some could be in class, but it's outside of class too. And we do have mechanisms that allow us to identify it. For example, papers go through turnitin.com, which is an online service that allows the paper you submit to be compared against anything across the internet or other papers that have been submitted. And also, even the Google Suite allows you to see in a presentation, for example, who the contributors were, how much they contributed. If a large segment of text was copied and pasted in a matter of 2 seconds, then probably that was not actually written by the student. So we do have tools that we use to identify. And I'll pass it back to Anthony.
Thank you. So similar to the high school, we also have typical infractions that we see at the middle school level, as well as our typical follow-up to those infractions responses in terms of discipline. The typical disciplinary responses range from warnings and conferences with administrators and counselors to detentions and, if necessary, suspension. So in terms of numbers, you'll notice that we had a decrease in student population by about 60 students this year compared to last year. And that has resulted in a drop in the total number of incidents from 116 to 98. Just like Lori said, these are our discipline type incidents, the ones that would warrant detention or something along those lines, something more significant than the file type infractions. As I mentioned to you on the first slide, we had a drop in the number of students who committed 1 and 2 offenses, as you can see here. That's from the previous year. However, when we look at the number of students who've committed 3+ offenses, 3 to 4 and 5+, those students or those numbers have increased from 2016-17. In terms of suspensions, the good news is we've seen a drop in the total number of suspensions from the previous year. We had 17, as you can see, in 16-17. 8 students were suspended once this year, 2017-18, and 1 student reoffended. He was suspended twice. This accounted for about 23 days of total suspension. In terms of the breakdown, the males at the middle school still are in the 90th percentile there, 92.9%. They dropped slightly from the previous year. Females at 7.3%. In terms of the breakdown in grades, the 6th grade, they accounted for the fewest number of incidents, with the 7th and 8th grade almost even, but not 100% even. In terms of our file type infractions, we had 62 this year. That included information on Hiv targets, background information on student conduct that I would put into the system so that Mrs. Gironda would be able to see it at the high school level. And as Mrs. Gironda said, our largest number of file type infractions comes from our excessive tardies. In order to address the excessive tardiness of some of our students, we've implemented a progressive set of consequences, which you can see there on the slide. We begin with letters being sent home via the parent portal. Student conferences are also held with administrators and with counselors as well. Parent notifications are a must. We get in touch with the parents to get their support. We do that through emails and through phone calls. And once the students reach a certain number of unexcused tardies, we begin to implement detentions. As you can see, though, we definitely could use parental support to address this issue, being that it accounted for 41 out of our 62 file type infractions. And now I'll turn it back to Mrs. Geronda for the Hiv info from the high school.
So taking a look at this year's Hiv investigations, we were at 19 as of June 1. Hopefully that's it for the year. This includes one that we did along with CMS. Of those 19, 6 were confirmed to be HIV, and you can see that the offenders were spread across grades with the exception of the sophomores this year. In terms of the identifying characteristics that were part of these confirmed HIVs, we had one involving physical characteristics, the student's appearance. In other words, disability status was involved in 2, weight in 4, and athletic ability in 1. These are some of the strategies that we've put in place to help address the culture and climate of the school and help to reduce the incidence of HIV. Our links and our student ambassadors work with students who are new to the school, links with the 9th graders, student ambassadors with the new students coming in, to really try to promote that culture of respect and acceptance, that we try to cultivate at Chatham High School.
And that's formerly the PAWS program?
Yes, links is formerly PAWS. Yep. The Week of Respect is part of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. It's the first week in October every year, and we have, just like at all of the schools in the district, we have activities that go on for the Week of Respect. We have Challenge Day as well that we usually try to schedule during the during that Week of Respect, and we were able to do that this year, so that took place in October. We also have some clubs that sponsor events, such as the Day of Silence that was sponsored by the GSA this year. We have our Learn Unified, Play Unified Club, which ran a number of different weeks of respect this year, and we had a lot of special events where we had students from ECLC come in and join our students for a variety of activities during the school days. And then we do issue consequences and we assign remedial measures such as counseling for students who are involved in Hiv incidents, and we do continue to include topics such as conflict resolution and acceptance and appreciation of diversity across all of the curriculum. It's not just limited to our health curriculum where there is a lot in there, but across all of the different content areas we do address these topics. This slide is showing you, in terms of our HIV investigations, where the original report stemmed from. So, and this is kind of an interesting bit of data that we added to our discipline report this year. Of the 19 incidents that were, the 19 investigations that occurred this year, 8 of the reports came originally from parents. So that was 42% of the overall reports. Of those 8 reports, 1 of them resulted in a confirmed HIV. The other 11 of those 19 investigations were reported by students, so that was 58% of all of the investigations were originally reported by students, and 5 of those resulted in a confirmed HIV. So just an interesting bit of data, and I know that Anthony has that information as well for CMS.
I have a question. No incidents whatsoever reported by staff members?
Well, what happens is,
strange.
yeah, students will often speak with staff, and then staff will come to me and say, this student reported this to me. But I actually consider that to be a student report, because when I'm talking about staff actually reporting something, it's without having talked to the student first, without having had the conversation with the student first. Sometimes either parents will come directly to the school and make a report without kind of looping in the student, or staff may come to the school, may come to us and make a report without looping in the student. But if a student went to a staff member and said, I feel like this is going on for me, the staff member may say to me, just a heads up, I told this student to come see you, but I really consider that a student-generated report, even though they're not coming to me first.
And you have had staff in the past, this particular year it's 0, but you have had staff
Yes.
come to you. And these just don't meet the definition of Hib, but that's not to say you didn't administer code of conduct
Absolutely.
or other disciplinary.
Absolutely. Yeah, just because something is not considered a confirmed Hib doesn't mean that there is not a situation going
Right, I just
on.
want to make that clear,
Yes.
that Hib is a very specific definition, and just because it didn't meet that definition doesn't mean you didn't take action.
Correct.
But nothing's going on with the junior class. They're angels. The 30% of them.
So in terms of the middle school, as I mentioned on that first slide, we did see an increase in the number of total investigations this year. As of June 1st, we are at 48 investigations, plus one that was already in progress. However, as you also notice, both last year and this year, we were at 19 confirmed. So when I did the math, roughly it was a 45.2% confirm rate for 16-17, and a slightly lower one, 39.6% for 17-18. Of those 19 incidents this year that were confirmed, 16 of the 19 involved verbal comments and 3 involved electronic communication. When we look at the number of students who reoffended, last year it was 5, this year it was 4. Here's that slide that Lori was just referencing. So we look at the reports that were generated, that generated the Hiv investigations, I should say. The parents generated roughly 52.1% of all of our reports. Of that 52.1%, 24% led to a confirmed Hiv. The students generated 13 reports, that's 27.1%. That led to 46.2% of those being confirmed. And the staff members generated 20.8%, and that led to a 70% confirmation rate, which makes sense because the staff are trained in Hib and what to look for, so it makes sense that what they are reporting as Hib would, more often than not, lead to a confirmed Hib.
Anthony, what do you attribute the 25% or the 24, the 25 incidents or the 52% by parents? Is that the age group or?
I would say that when things happen often at home, the students would go home and report it to their parents. And thinking of the old stereotype definition of bullying as opposed to the legal definition of Hib, I think when the parents hear it and they believe that it fits that old idea of bullying, they report it as bullying, but as you know, the Hib law is very prescriptive, so if a parent reports it as bullying, we have to open up an HIB investigation. More often than not, though, I just think that the parents want something to be done about the matter, not necessarily an HIB, but because of the prescriptive nature of the law, it often generates that HIB investigation. When we look at the distinguishing or identifying characteristics, if it has a star next to it, it's part of a Hib with multiple identifying characteristics. Race and weight featured prominently in our Hib investigations this year with 5 and 5. Perceived sexual orientation was at 3. Perceived intelligence level at 2. Physical appearance 2. Religion, if you remember, we had a large number of incidents last year, went down to 2. Special education status at 1. Athletic aptitude at 1.
Religion dropped, but race went up.
Yes, it did. And as with the high school, I believe the high school saw a large number of incidents related to weight, and that also featured in our data as well. As far as what are we doing to address this year we did a number of things, some new, some just kind of like, old practice. Mandatory remedial measures is something we've always instituted. So that basically means we have mandatory follow-up with guidance counselors and/or case managers for reported cases of Hibs. They will address the underlying issue that caused the behavior, promote empathy, and try to get the students some strategies for dealing with other people they may not always get along with. As far as our assemblies this year, they were presented on the themes of respect and bullying. We had Ryan's story this year. It was a gentleman who, unfortunately, he lost his son to suicide, partly because of bullying. So he came in, he told the story. We also had a special agent with the FBI, Agent Robertson of the FBI. He came in and presented something on cyberbullying and cyber safety. Our Week of Respect activities this year focused on the themes of community and tolerance. For the World Day of Bullying Prevention, all the students wore blue shirts, and we took this, we assembled them all in the oval in front of CMS, took this big, giant, we assembled them in the shape of a heart, took a big, giant picture, put it on our website. As far as the tolerance. One of the activities from the Week of Respect, the students were assigned the activity in their social studies classes of kind of discussing where their ancestors or their family had come from, plotting it on a map, and then the teachers would print the map and put them up so that the students would see that, hey, you know, I'm not alone. I'm not the only student whose ancestors came from Eastern Europe, came from Asia, someplace like that. The Hiv education piece was a big one this year. During the back to school night, I created a video for the parents to educate them on Hiv policy and procedures. During the Week of Respect, Mr. Trebor and I were able to get into all the science classes and give a short 20-minute presentation on Hiv policy and procedures. We made a large copy of our CMS anti-bullying pledge, which all the students signed, and we put that by the cafeteria so the students constantly passed it on their way in to lunch every day. One of our counselors also created a Hiv webinar that the students and parents did together, kind of like a follow-up assessment to all the information that we're passing on to the parents and the students this year. We also have a student recognition program. It involves a student of the month, which the teachers are given a set of criteria. They generate nominees, one student per house per grade level each month, and those names are posted outside of the main office. We also have certificates. And we also have a student shout-out program, which is I send an electronic nomination form out to the students at the end of each month, and they nominate other students for acts of kindness, or they can also nominate their teachers and their counselors as well for acts of kindness. And that was, you know, in the hopes of promoting a more positive environment at CMS. Monday morning music is run by Miss Emmer. She's our SAC, and she starts the week off with a positive, upbeat song over the intercom every Monday. And our Acceptance Alliance is a club for students who are interested in making CMS a more accepting place in terms of diversity. We saw our membership go up this year, which was a great thing. Some ongoing strategies that we have at CMS that we're still going to continue. We have ELA units that discuss literature relating to the Holocaust, diversity, racial prejudices. Just to give you some idea, in 6th grade, the students discuss books on the Holocaust in literature circles, and they also have a Holocaust survivor comes in and speaks to the students. In grade 7, the students discuss the theme of social status in groups when they read The Outsiders. There's also a World in Conflict unit where the students discuss global conflicts that deal with fighting and social cultural issues. In 8th grade, the students discuss the themes of disability when they read Of Mice and Men, and racial prejudices when they read To Kill a Mockingbird. In our social studies courses, the teachers go over global awareness and civics. During the civics lessons, they discuss civil rights and the idea of civic responsibility. In our cycle courses, argument and debate, the students will learn to listen to and be accepting of other people's opinions. In our digital footprints course, the students learn how to behave in an appropriate and respectful manner online. In our Holocaust Studies course, the students discuss the choices that are made by people and nations during the Holocaust, and they talk about the idea of an upstander versus a bystander. Art and music, the students explore works of art and music from different cultures. In art, our 8th grade course is called Transcending the Cultural Divide. The students explore pottery from different cultures. This year they created sugar skulls and Oaxacan sculptures of Mexican descent, and also African-themed masks. In music, the students perform songs on the themes of cultural awareness and respect. For instance, during our spring concert, the chorus performed Scottish and Irish songs. And in the band and orchestra, during the spring concert, the students performed the Mexican hat dance and the Celtic Aran dance. Moving forward, I'd like to continue some of our strategies from 17-18 that proved to be effective, but I'd also like to incorporate some sort of regular follow-up to our Hiv education program throughout the year. The reason for this is we implemented our Hiv education program at the beginning of the year, and up through December, we only had 14 HIV investigations. And if you look at that data from the previous year, that almost cut our numbers in half. Once they came back from the break, though, we had 9 investigations in January alone, and we had 34 since the beginning of the new year. So I feel that the students need maybe somewhat of a refresher course, a reminder about Hiv, how it works, what form that will take. I'd like to go over that with my school safety team and with my staff. Maybe we can generate some ideas, maybe some activities, maybe online things, but that's my goal for next year. I think that just about covers it.
I know in our committee meeting we talked about folding some of these initiatives into the health and PE program at CMS, since they do have Tim every day and it's kind of a natural collaboration part of the day for them.
Absolutely.
So if you could get back to us in the fall on how that's going.
You got it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. I just want to thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Lori, real quick on the vaping, I know that's been a real focus.
Yes.
I was looking at the student wellness survey again last Friday, and it's interesting, the students' perception, when they consider what's harmful in that chart, they consider smoking extremely harmful, but yet when it comes to the vaping and the marijuana, not so harmful. So clearly the anti-smoking ads that they've been bombarded with all of their life are working, but yet they think these little jewel packets, because they're orange and reds and greens and purples, are not harmful. So, you know, you had mentioned that you're going to continue with the education on the well-being and how harmful
Right.
some of this stuff
Yeah, I
is.
think because more data is coming out at this point, hard data,
Right.
that we can include in the health classes and in the information that we put out about the harmful effects, whether it's wet lung or, you know, any of the other things that can arise from inhaling something you shouldn't be inhaling, that's going to be very valuable. It took a long time for the smoking industry to, you know, go on that
It did.
downward because of the information that came out. So unfortunately, it may take us a little bit of time to achieve that same result with the vaping.
Right, interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Mike, when will the next, the student wellness survey, the updated version, be posted? Not till next year?
Yes, we've been doing that every 2 years.
Right.
So last one was 2016, and I think we administered, I want to say in December.
Okay,
So our goal will be to
fall?
do that in the fall.
okay. I noticed it was the 16 version. I wasn't sure when the 18 would be posted. Fantastic. Dr. LaSousa, did you have any additional?
Nothing else. That's
I-
it for me.
I just wanted to comment, I mean, we're talking about the discipline and, you know, we're focusing on the things that went wrong, but again, we have to highlight the numbers are, you know, not very high, and there are, you know, there's curriculum on top of it. The kids seem to be learning, you know, when last year it was a lot on race and religion, and it seems to shift slightly. So the kids are getting the message. It just, every year we have to just focus on something else. So while we're looking at just all the very, very bad things, the numbers are fairly low across this large student population.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Mike, you said you were done?
I am done.
Okay, sorry about that. Peter, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure, just
Okay.
wanted to give the board a quick update on construction. At the middle school, the contractor continues to move at a steady pace, is coming close to completion. The windows are finally arrived and being installed this week. They're working on regrading the outside of the property, and they continue with the interior work and almost done. So I can't wait for Thursday's construction meeting to hopefully be able to walk in the door rather than have to climb through a window like we did 2 weeks ago. At the middle school, the contractor again has finished the cement cinder block work and will now start on the brickwork and the roof deck. So they are moving along and going at a good pace. They got clearance from Principal Gahorsky to disconnect the old HVAC unit that fed the auditorium so they can hook up the new one. So we're continuing to make strides. Even though it may not look like a lot is getting accomplished, they're moving and show up every day and, you know, diligent in their work. The one that, if unfortunately I wish I could show pictures, since it's definitely off limits, but the contractor in the auditorium is making unbelievable progress, and it is starting to take shape where a lot of the painting has been completed. The metal grates are on the walls. They've started to install the vinyl tile that will go underneath the seats. So we're definitely, you know, making progress. So it's starting to look a little bit like an auditorium or a space that can house people. For the central office, this is the one, I guess, project that we have to stay on top of the contractor. They've started the block work. They are a little bit behind schedule. We're working with them to revise the timeline. So the district has a different opinion from the contractor of when the building should be completed. So we keep pushing and pulling on that one. And the architect has now sent a representative that will stay at the site every day for 2 weeks to monitor the progress to make sure they're working at an appropriate pace and have enough staffing on the job.
And if, what's the recourse? If two guys are there laying bricks, what's the recourse from the architect standpoint?
The architect reports it, we tell the contractor we're not happy, and then if need be, we call the surety company, which is the big brother that watches over the contractor.
Okay.
And, you know, the contractors definitely are very diligent to keep a good record with the surety company.
Okay.
Because they need to be bonded for each job they do.
Yeah, because you had mentioned last week or the week before, there's only two guys laying bricks.
Yeah, well, there was actually a crew of 4, so they have made some progress in the week, but we will, you know, judge every day based on what they're doing, and hopefully they can get, you know, while the brickwork is being done, I want other things to commence as well, you know, so not just, you know, finish one thing and another. The other item I wanted to report was, I guess, a incident at Washington that I think could have been, at the Washington school, I think could be handled better. The PTO was very gracious enough through their fundraising to fund the resurfacing of the asphalt playground. And due to timing, and as everyone knows, I guess the weather doesn't always cooperate. We had originally hoped to have this done at Teaching Convention Week in November, but the weather didn't cooperate. It was too cool. They wanted to do it in spring break, which being shortened and weather didn't cooperate. It was done over Memorial Day weekend. And unfortunately, rather than reach out to the district via phone call or email, a lot of, I guess, the neighbors or parents just took to social media to barrage the district and trash talk the district about products used and that the district didn't account for safety. And obviously, once the district was aware of it, we produced the MSDS for the material that basically proved to be harmless. You know, I shouldn't say it was proved to be harmless unless it was ingested. And obviously, you know, something, if they're not working with the product, the students, you know, walking on blacktop, there's no way they could possibly ingest it. So I would ask that the people, the residents, you know, give the district the same courtesy that you would give your own neighbor, is, you know, pick up a phone, send an email, you know, call. You know, call the principal, call the head of maintenance, John Cataldo, or call myself, rather than, you know, attack the district via social media.
Well, I think it'd be more effective if you, instead of 57 posts on Facebook, if they just called the principal. And it's interesting, a lot of them were, you know, how dare the district, and it was a PTO-sponsored event. So, but that's fine, but it's just more effective to pick up the phone, send an email to the principal, send an email to the board email, send it to Dr. LaSousa. Instead of just griping on Facebook, it's just not the most effective way. Just pick up the phone.
And the last item I had is on the agenda. You could see all of the required to report all of the bus evacuation drills that were conducted in the second half of the year, all without, you know, any event or any incident. So we continue to be in compliance with all of our required training and required practice. And that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Peter? I don't. Karen, you look like you have a question. No, you're good. Okay, excellent. Very good. Okay, then we have committee reports. Sorry, apologize. Committee reports, personnel, Ms. Penny.
Yes, personnel met on May 29th, and we got an update on the out-of-network reimbursement process that's going to be taking place for the shift. We reviewed the supervisor screening process. We had 2 committees that were formed, one for the performing arts and one for special education. And then we reviewed new regulation. I don't know if it's officially called Pass the Trash, but that's what it's known as. But it's basically a...
layman's name is Pass the
That's
Trash.
what layman's... but it's basically new regulations that's going to require that the district do reference checks for anyone who has contact with children for the last 20 years of employment. So we're waiting to figure out exactly how the district is going to be engaging in doing that research. And then we also reviewed the videography demands that the district has been undergoing over the last few years, and trying to get the best solution in terms of meeting the supply and demand in terms of how things are videographed within the district. Is that a word, videographed?
It is for now.
It is for now.
It is for now.
Sounds good to me.
Excellent.
Yeah, it is. Videoed in the district.
You all done with that?
That is it, yes.
Mrs. Ciccarelli, would you mind for curriculum?
I would not mind. We also met on May 29th, and we got a preview of the CMS-CHS incident report from Lori and Anthony, and that's pretty much all we talked about. We do not have another meeting scheduled that I'm aware of.
Okay. Hopefully the summer will be lighter.
Yeah.
Matt, Mr. Gilfillan, Finance and Facilities?
We haven't met since the last meeting. We meet prior to the next meeting.
June 25th, that's right. Actually, we may switch that to after
Either way.
the meeting, okay? And then Policy and Planning, Mr. Arnott?
We met just prior to this evening's board meeting, and we discussed probably 5 or 6 different policies, ranging from eye protection, EEO, athletic safety, medical clearance, suicide prevention. We've decided we're going to continue discussing before we come to a first reading on all of these things. We're looking to meet in July to do that. And then finally, we also continued our discussion of school safety policies and procedures.
Excellent. Thank you. Liaison reports, I have nothing from the borough. Ms. Clark in the township?
Nothing from the township.
Athletic boosters, Ann?
I wasn't there, so I have nothing. Were you?
I was not.
Okay.
No. Performing arts,
They're not
Sal,
here
it's all
either.
you. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Jill. The Chatham Middle School theater class plays were presented to large, enthusiastic student, staff, parent audiences last week. They were supported by the stagecraft classes. 4 separate productions were presented that showcased both the technical and acting prowess of our middle school young actors. So that went off really, really well. This is kind of interesting. In the annual Lafayette 4th grade cemetery walk took place on May 30th. And basically, after students learn about deceased Chatham residents in class, and there are several examples, Jimmy Littlejohn, Jan Westfall, John Day, the actors dress up as these residents and stand by their graves in the Fairmount Cemetery, and they perform a monologue in character. After each monologue, students ask questions and have a chance to learn about the history of their hometown. I think that's pretty neat because it ties the school closely with the community, so it's different, and I appreciate that. The district concert season concludes this week as Lafayette Band, Chorus, and Orchestra members present their spring performances on Wednesday and Thursday. The 2nd annual district art show was held May 21st and 22nd. It was a great success, and thanks to the teachers and the community for supporting that show. Finally, the Performing Arts Boosters have had a terrific year and want to thank the community for their support, and we welcome additional supporters to show up at our first meeting next year, September 12th, in the Lafayette Teachers Lounge. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sal. The cemetery walk is a great time. It's interesting. I watched it last year, the year before, and it's funny. The first question the kids always ask the upper students, the high schoolers, how did you die? And I'm like, what is this? Their obsession with death. It dawned on me, they're in a cemetery. So of course they want to know, how did you get here? I was like, oh. So now I think they changed the script to kind of led, tuberculosis, or I got sick, or, it was funny.
It's through the historical society.
Yeah, through the
right?
historical
So it's a
society.
partnership, it's so nice.
So it's a community event, it's a high school event, it's really a great time. But it was amazing that every kid, how did you die? And they get to hear about prominent Chatham residents, so it was a good time. Sorry, Ms. Kenny, Education Foundation?
Yes, I'd just like to remind everybody that Chatham Education Foundation is doing a fundraiser for teacher tributes. The last day is tomorrow to recognize either teachers or principals or anyone in the district that you'd like to send a candy bar to. The website is www.chathamedfoundation.org, and again, the deadline is tomorrow.
Thank you. And there are no more PTO district cabinet meetings, right? For the year that you had the last one.
Today was the last one.
Oh, today was the last one. Was it a wrap-up and a transition, or is there something?
Yes, wrap-up, transition, luncheon.
Wow, luncheon.
I missed that one.
That's the one you should have gone to. Very good. So I make a motion, as the hour's getting late, to pass the public and private sessions meeting minutes from May 14th.
Second.
Peter, who was not?
Ms. Chambers was not.
Ms. Chambers.
selected.
Okay.
The regular and exec minutes from 5:14, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes.
Mr. Arnott.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Abstain.
Ms. Chigarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Lendy. Yes. Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Minutes passed 8-0-1.
Excellent. We have our first opportunity for public commentary. If you wouldn't mind just stepping up to the mic, signing in, and introducing yourself.
My name is Melissa Kasilniak, and my daughter is a kindergartner at Washington Avenue. And I'm actually going to bring up the social media report that was triggered by me, which I was very concerned about the blacktop sealant that was used, which I had emailed the principal and asked what type of blacktop sealant that they had used, because there's two different kinds. One is asphalt and the other one is coal tar. And she had responded back to me that, and I'll read the email, that we had followed up with Guerrero Paving, and they used a water-based coal tar pavement sealer approved for all seal coating in New Jersey. Asphalt was used to patch the cracks. Guerrero Paving has been using this product for 25 years on every driveway and blacktop surface around town. My problem with that is, even though they've been doing it for 25 years, it doesn't mean that it's safe. And coal tar is full of cancer-causing chemicals. And I have documents from the EPA stating that coal tar is a complex chemical mixture that includes polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, a class of chemicals known to cause cancer. Types of cancer may be caused by coal tar include blood, kidney, liver, lung, scrotal, skin, and stomach cancers. It's mutagenic, it's toxic to aquatic life, and I got this picture here today. They were saying how people aren't ingesting it, but actually kids every day are tearing it up and rolling it into balls. This little boy put it in his pocket and then went to the ice cream truck that was out there and got an ice cream cone, so he is ingesting it. My son also, I caught playing with it, and then he put his hands in his mouth. And he has celiac disease, which he's at a higher risk for cancer. So these are terrible causing cancer chemicals that are in coal tar. And I know in New Jersey, coal tar is the standard, and that's what we're all used to, and we're not educated on it. And my post was not to put anybody down, because that's what everybody uses in New Jersey. So the reason that I posted it is because my son had put his hands in his mouth after he touched it. He has celiac disease, and I freaked out. And I don't want the other kid, and all the other kids, they're pulling it up and watching them daily, and they're playing with it. They're throwing it around, and then they're eating lunch on the ground. So it's something that, and I have reports that in the rest of the country, this stuff is being banned. We don't hear about it in New Jersey because nobody's doing anything about it yet, but in the state of Texas, it is banned, and in Austin, Texas, they're remediating all of the playgrounds, so it's just something that we're not educated on, and I didn't mean any disrespect to anybody, and it's just,
Oh, none taken. It was more of an efficiency thing.
yeah, it's more, I feel like we should be more educated on it, and I just bringing awareness to it, and if you guys haven't been to Washington Avenue and smelled it, I would encourage you to go there and smell it, and you can smell the toxicity in it. And I have tons of studies showing just how toxic these chemicals are, and it's a fact. So I guess what I was wondering was if it was maybe, if we could maybe research it further and look at the studies, and in the future, maybe look at an alternative when it's time to put a sealant in the schools, and then maybe possibly looking into remediate the current situation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. And maybe work on the timing. I know the parents wanted it done for field day, but summertime is obviously a better time to do those projects. Mm-hmm. I know the parents pushed for it, and that's great that they donate it, but, the district has to get in front of that, and August would have been a much better time frame for that.
Is it something that we could look into more to see if we could use an alternative such as asphalt?
Peter's taking notes. He's in charge of facilities.
I will say that this is, resurfacing like this is not something that the district would typically fund. Sorry, it would not be something that the district would typically fund. We would wait to redo the blacktop. So this was done, via the PTO who wanted to freshen the PTO, and obviously the blacktop at Washington would be probably would have been at least 3 to 4 more years out before that would have been replaced. So I think it was the PTO's way of trying to improve the school.
If you look at it, it's like it didn't even do anything, and some of the things they were trying to cover, like the 4 squares, it's still visible, so it's a...
No, that is the way the product would work. Just for example, if you put a piece of masking tape on the wall and you paint the wall, the masking tape, where the masking tape was on the wall bleeds through. So there is, the lines of the 4 squares and the basketball foul line or top or key, as you would call it, were raised surfaces on the blacktop. So nothing will, unless you put down a product to smooth them out, anything like that will always bleed through. So that is not a fault of the product. That's just the way it works. So that's.
I guess the concern is these kids they're touching it, they're grabbing it, they're tearing it apart, and they're being exposed to it, and it smells horrible, and the smell that's coming out of it is the vapors of the PHHs, which cause cancer.
We will do some more investigation work and be much more cautious if any of this wants to be done in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public commentary? Oh, sorry, just closed. Sorry.
No, we like her.
Hi, I'm Amy Coates from Chatham Township, and on behalf of the Chatham Education Foundation, I am pleased to present this check to the School District of the Chathams in the amount of $9,380.41 for the Flexible Learning Furniture Grant that was written by Christine Dudlow, the principal at Washington Avenue School. The grant includes marker board tables, blackjack chairs, activity tables, and pedal desks. And with this check, and along with the other checks from the Chatham Education Foundation for the academic year 2017-18, I am super excited to announce that CEF has provided over $100,000 in grants, $104,636 to be exact. Wow. And that is nearly a 30% increase over last year.
Wow. That's amazing. Which is a 30% increase over the previous year. Yeah. That's amazing.
As you know, CEF is only able to make these grants possible due to the generosity of the public and its donors through our annual appeals, Casino Royale, Trivia Night, and Teacher Tribute. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ooh. We love when you come to meetings. Thank you, Amy. Okay, we're going to move on to our regular action items, and there is another opportunity at the end of when we finish up with the action items for public commentary. Moving over to personnel, Ms. Kenny, would you mind moving your items?
Yes, I'd like to move action items A1 to A30 for both, with a couple of items on the addendum. There are a few changes, A1, A17, A23, A26, and A30. Wow.
All audible.
I second it.
Does anybody have any questions for Lotta or Ms. Grant or Dr. LaSousa on any personnel items? Again, the agendas are posted Friday afternoon, so we read them over the weekend. So if it appears that we go through quickly, we've already read through them. Any questions? Seeing none, Peter, would you mind?
Sure. Agenda items A1 to 30 with addendum on A1, 17, 23, 26, and 30. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Harnick?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Valenti?
Peter, I have to abstain on 23 and vote in the affirmative for the rest.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items A1 through 30, with the exception of A23, pass 9-0. A23 passes 8-0-1.
Excellent, very good. Moving over to Finance and Facilities, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes, to move action items B1 through 25 on your regular agenda, 26 to 28 on your addendums.
Oh, they're just new, nothing changed, just new ones? Somebody second that?
Second.
Question, are these the old ROD grants, reimbursement stuff, is that fund still basically completely
Tapped.
tapped, broke? So we got no
Bankrupt.
bankrupt, yeah.
Yeah,
but the rest
this is
still-
basically the DOE's way of saying they will approve your projects as long as you tell them
I
you
just,
want
I
to.
didn't know if the money miraculously found its way back in there, I was just hoping. But it was
The only way to
wishful
get
thinking.
money would be if the district was doing a referendum for debt and requesting debt service, and the projects qualified for debt service.
Okay, a couple donations to recognize one, the PTO of Chatham Middle School donating $13,500 for the purchase installation of water bottle filling stations at the school. We'd like to thank Wendy Chan for a donation to the middle school as well through JP Morgan Chase and Company Foundation for the amount of $48 to be used at discretion of the principal. I like to always thank personal efforts for donations in this town. A donation to the Milton Avenue School from Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Cashin, residents of Chatham, of a little Tykes barn valued at $350, and a Washington Avenue PTO donation in the amount of $4,124 for a new basketball hoop to replace the current one. You must be pretty nice basketball hoops for $4,000.
It's adjustable.
It's adjustable? Okay.
Okay.
Still nice adjustables.
Is that it? Yeah. Peter, you got the second on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I have
Mr.
a
Guerrero.
question on 16. B16. The reduction in the commission, is that ongoing, or is that just for a period of time?
As noted in the resolution, it says effective 7/1 and thereafter. So effective 7/1 on.
Is there any thought into, this was obviously an issue that we had with the broker. Is there a possibility that the broker would file an E&O claim with their carrier to recoup that money? And if so, couldn't they do that to recoup the money we're going to end up spending extra on this?
I do not know. I'd have to investigate that. I wouldn't see why the broker would want to taint the relationship with the district, but because out of the broker.
It's a $100,000 reduction for them,
Correct.
right? So they're going to claim that. They're going to file a claim with their insurance company to cover that loss.
I don't know that.
If they can do that, they can also file a claim to cover our additional expense.
Like I said, I don't know their,
Okay.
I don't know their intention.
Any additional questions on any of the facilities or finance items? No. I'll have a question during board business, but Peter, would you mind?
Sure, agenda items B1 through 25 and the addendums 26, 27, and 28. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Harnick?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
I'm going to abstain on 24 and 25 and 16 that we talked about. But I approve it.
Okay. Ms. Chicarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
I'm going to abstain on 16.
Okay, Mr. Valenti? Yes. And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
B16 passes 7-0-2. B24 and 26 pass 8-0-1. The remainder pass 9-0.
Excellent. Moving on to curriculum, Mrs. Ciccarelli.
Yes, I'd like to move action item C1 to C4 on the regular agenda.
Any questions related to curriculum? That what you can ask? Did you have Michelle? Go ahead, Peter, thank you.
Sure, agenda items C1 through C4. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Valenti? Yes. And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 9-0.
Policy, I know there's nothing on the agenda. Mr. Arnock, did you want to call any audibles?
No, Joe, thank you.
Okay, very good. So board business, first off, I'd like to relinquish the floor to Mary Chambers.
Thank you,
Then
Mrs.
I'll-
Weber.
And then I'll ask my question.
Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate you giving me just a few minutes. I just want to let everyone know that I'm new to the board, and I have not been in the schools in a long time because my children are really out of them, and, you know, we would go to them for all kinds of events and sports. And I just want to let everyone know that Dr. LaSousa took a whole day over the course of several weeks to take me on a thorough and inclusive tour of each and every one of our schools. And I just want to say I am just so impressed, and I want to thank you for your time because it meant a lot to me. I got to see how each of these schools work and the dedication of our teachers and their desire and ability to reach all of our students at every level. And it just made me feel really good to see the children and see our I got to talk to our principals and some teachers, and I got to see, you know, everything within the buildings. And I just want to thank you and let everyone know that he took the time, he was patient with me, answered all my questions. So I just wanted to thank you again and let everyone know that he was kind enough to give me that much of his time. In addition, I also want to thank Peter for answering all my questions as well, because between the two of you, I mean, what you handle on a day in and a day out basis, notwithstanding what we ask of you, is a tremendous effort, and I think the teamwork that you display is incredible, and I think it guides this school district on a great path, and I am proud to be working with you all, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for that. So thank you.
You got to see the bad, the good, and the ugly?
Yeah.
You got to see it all?
That's true.
You know, I can barely find a plumber to fix something in my
Who's the
house.
ugly?
These gentlemen are handling full construction, you know, stands and colors of bleachers and holes for.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and they're on top of it, and they do it with a smile, and I just appreciate that so much and their time. So thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
And everyone
Mary.
else that I've
Thank you for taking the
spoken
time to tour.
Thank
the
you very
schools.
much.
Thank
You guys should keep being Mike and
Yeah,
Peter.
Keep being Mike. Well, thank you for touring the schools, because, you know, I know you don't have kids in the schools, which is kind of a nice set of fresh eyes, I think. You know, it's yes, the questions that we just take for granted. A quick question on board business. Mike, I know you told me this before. When can we hear, or maybe Matt, you might know the answer to this, when will we hear about the school funding question that's in the news all the time, that we're looking for a nice windfall if it goes our way?
Well, the deadline is June 30th to adopt the budget, and this is all tied to the budget negotiations right now.
Do you agree with that number in the paper? 2.478 million, whatever will be due to us, under the new formula? Do you believe that number?
There are a lot of numbers floating around. So according to the DOE, at full funding, we would be at about 4.5 or so million, and we're at about 2.3.
Full funding under the 2008 formula, or full funding under a potential new formula?
Well, the proposal really that Senator Sweeney has kind of crafted into legislation is to use the 2008 formula,
Right, with
but take away
modifications.
adjustment aid, which is something that we've never, had,
Right.
and take away the growth caps that districts like us have experienced, because we had enrollment go up to such an extent that we would have received more funding if we weren't capped and if the formula had been run.
Right.
But there are different numbers floating around about what percentage of full funding districts would receive. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions about whether or not they're going to just redistribute aid once they take away adjustment aid, which looks like there's a good chance that's going to happen.
Okay.
Are they going to redistribute according to the formula, or are they going to prioritize some districts that right now are spending under adequacy or whose taxpayers are paying below their local fair, above their local fair share?
Right.
Whereas we're in the opposite ends of those two, categories. So if they don't prioritize and it's just a straight redistribution, we'll see, presumably, we would see a bump up in aid.
But there was some talk of phasing it in as well, because they can't.
Right, but we would see a bump every year for 7 years.
Every year for 7
To get
years.
closer to 4.5 million.
Okay. And the districts that are going to lose a significant amount of money, they'll remove the cap in order to make up the budget difference?
No, the legislation that Senator Sweeney put forward did not have that provision. And there's concern over that. The only districts that would have been able to raise that kind of money to go beyond the 2%, I believe, were the vocational school districts or the SDA districts. Those two classes of school districts were held harmless.
Right.
But all of this is in negotiations. I mean, nobody knows what will emerge.
So the thing in the paper you probably didn't think was very factual. I mean, I saw stuff that districts that don't need money that are going up significantly, and it was bizarre to me.
Right, I agree.
I've read a bunch of different things, so I don't know. I'd have to look at whatever article you're referencing right now, thenj.com.
They said they referred to as under the expected formula, that this is how your numbers would be impacted. And ours was like $2.45 million over a certain amount of time.
So June 30th is when the budget will be adopted?
Well, last year there was a shutdown, so they're saying that, that they don't want to shut the government down again. That wasn't too successful, and of course it's all the same party down there now, so a shutdown wouldn't look very good.
Okay, all right, so more to follow. I know. Does anybody else have any additional board business? We have graduation next Tuesday, meeting after that on June 25th. Anything else I'm missing?
Executive session tonight.
Executive session brief.
Action, no.
No action will be taken. I'm thinking I'm missing something, but. Yeah, that's true. Okay, we have our second opportunity for public commentary. Maybe they'll come to me. The executive session will be fast, so we won't keep you. You want to sit down?
I said no one sit down.
Oh, no one sit down. There's not enough chairs.
Yeah, sit down.
Good evening, Bill Heath, Chatham Borough. I'm wondering if there is going to be some sort of, or if you can explain the protocol when it comes to making your decision about hiring Class 3 officers for the school. Will there be a committee? Will they take public input? Will they have a presentation to explain the decision? Is it going to be a top-down command decision, or will you take comments from the public?
Probably.
I could answer
Yeah,
that,
Mike is
We had
spearheading.
vociferous debate about that this evening. So we are discussing all of what you just asked. We have discussed and started to discuss months ago and are continuing to discuss, to talk about the process, how we go about it, what we take into account, who we pull into that discussion. So we are having ongoing discussion. Didn't mean to cut you off, Jill.
Did not.
But those are.
I was going to come to you.
It did just come up tonight, and we are trying to fast track it because it is such an important issue, and we want to get on a track and get input and move forward on the issue. I hope that helps.
So you'll keep us all informed as to how this is going to work?
We will keep you as informed as possible.
And Bill, quite frankly, we don't have the money in our operating budget, so it may very well go to a debate here, but then it also would go out to the public for a vote. So you can't get any more informed than that. voting yes or no on it.
A second question.
Whatever, how it's framed, it would have to be a second question to add to the operating budget, because we currently do not have the money to fund that. A lot of municipalities fund it. A lot of municipalities in Morris County, they share the expenses. That doesn't look like it's going to happen here, and we simply do not have it in the operating budget.
I don't know what the sense of the community is. People I talk to don't really want it, but I don't talk to everybody. If
I
school
talk to
parents,
everybody else, and they want it.
okay, if school parents really want this,
You know, I don't know if that's true, but it'd have to be publicly vetted, and as I said, if it goes to a vote, you'll have your answer then.
okay, but if school parents really want this, this would be, and there is no money around, why not have a security fee?
Right.
50 or $100 a head if they want, if they feel like the protection that the town is not providing in terms of a police force is really necessary. It might be a good idea to have them, fund the cost.
Nothing's off the table.
We talked about the budget issue also tonight to see if there is any possible thing that we haven't thought about, so.
Well, that's why I was asking about the
Yeah,
school funding
right,
question.
Right. So they're material questions, and we're trying to find answers, and we're trying to find answers,
And we're relying heavily on our law enforcement experts in town, and their guidance, and our board,
I also noticed that there were students up here requesting open campus privileges. And I'm not against that, and I'm certainly not for guys with guns in the schools. But I think this comes down to how much you want to turn the place into a fortress. And if you want to keep kids safe, I'm not sure that allowing them to come and go is a great idea. I'm not against it, but try and fight that battle and you won't win. It seems to me that it's probably more expedient for you to hire a guy with a gun and then tell everybody that we've solved the problem. And it's really not going to do that. Not at all. And let's be honest with people. I think they're going to have to slap some cold water on their face and sober up about this. There are things that we can't plan for. We can't plan for all contingencies. And that's about it. Schools are still safe no matter what anybody thinks. In fact, you probably have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than getting shot in a school. And in fact, also, there were more kids killed on their way to school, on their bikes and walking last year than there were killed in school. So we really have to, I think, take a hard look at the statistics. 50 million kids are in school in the United States, and it's still a really safe place to be, no matter what we get with this steady diet of doomsday stuff on the news and over the internet and every place else. It really warps people's perspective on this. So I do think that we need to sit down and take a cold, hard look at it, because we'll be spending $3 million over 10 years for what is essentially hand-holding, a security blanket. And I think we have better ways to spend that money. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Have a great summer. Any additional public commentary? I make a motion to close the public session.
Second. Third.
All those in favor?
Aye.